Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vanave Africa. Welcome to another exciting edition of your favorite current affairs show. This is Africa Good Morning, where we are bringing you the news making headlines. It's finally Friday. My name is Aina Raizakoya, and alongside me is Ashwin Mberi.
And today is Africa Industrialization Day. Industry can enhance productivity, increase the capabilities of the workforce, and generate employment by introducing new equipment and new techniques. Industrialization, with strong linkages to domestic economies, will help African countries to achieve high growth rates, diversify their economies, and reduce their exposure to external shocks. This will substantially contribute to poverty eradication through employment and wealth creation. Let's have a look at this video on Africa Industrialization Day.
Africa, good morning, and here are the news-making headlines. 15 shot dead in crackdown on a Sudan anti-coup protest. Sudanese security forces shot dead at least 15 coup protesters and wounded dozens more on Wednesday, medics said, in the bloodiest day since the military's 25 of October takeover. The fatalities in Khartoum, especially its northern district, rose to 39 death tolls from unrest since the military seized power, a pro-democracy doctor union said. Hundreds more have been wounded. The day's massacre reinforces our slogan: no negotiations, no partnership, no compromise with the military, said protest organizer from Sudanese Professionals Association. The demonstrators, mostly young men and women, clapped hands and ululated before the scene turned violent. As clashes broke out, the security forces also fired tear gas, injuring several more protesters, witnesses said. Police have denied using live ammunition, and state television announced an investigation into the deaths.
In our next story, death toll soars to 53 after attack on Burkina Faso security post. 53 people were killed in a weekend attack on a gendarmerie post in Burkina Faso. An updated government toll showed on Wednesday as President Roch Kabore responded to a public outcry over the worst strike on security forces in years. Sunday's bloodshed has provoked protests over the authorities' failure to curb a 4-year Islamist insurgency that has killed thousands and forced more than 1 million people to flee their homes. The attack near a gold mine in Inata, a territory in the northern Soum region, killed 49 military police officers and 4 civilians, a government spokesperson said, updating a previous estimate of 32 killed. In a public address on Wednesday, Kabore said he understood why some citizens were angry about the attack and the circumstances leading up to it. 2 senior security service commanders have already been dismissed, according to the government spokesperson.
Security climate dominates as U.S. Secretary of State kicks off Africa tour. U.S. Secretary of State Antony reiterated calls for an unconditional ceasefire in Ethiopian conflict on Wednesday on the first leg of an African trip which will take place in Kenya, Nairobi, and Senegal. The war in northern Ethiopia, the coup in Sudan, and Somalia's long-delayed elections dominated the agenda, along with climate change, as Blinken and Kenya's Foreign Minister Rachel Omomo addressed the media in Nairobi. He praised Kenya for getting 90% of its energy from renewable sources, saying it presented a global model. Omomo said Kenya looked forward to working with the United States to plug the climate financing gap, saying that poorer countries who did not create the problem paid the greatest price for global warming. On Thursday, Blinken will visit Nigeria, Africa's largest oil exporter, to meet President Muhammadu Buhari, whose government is battling an Islamist insurgency in the northeast and mass kidnappings by armed gangs in the north and northwest.
In our next story, nearly 8 million COVID-19 recoveries across the African continent. As of 15 November 2021, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reached 8,565,527, while over 131,486,222 vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reached 220,963 and 7,964,271 people have recovered. South Africa has the most reported cases with 2,926,348 and 89,504 people have died. Other most affected countries are Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia, Libya, Egypt and Kenya. The numbers are compiled by the Center for Systems, Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University, using statistics from the World Health Organization and other international institutions, as well as national and regional public health departments.
Pandemic threatens to drive an unprecedented number of children into learning poverty. The COVID-19 pandemic could drive up learning poverty, the share of 10-year-olds who cannot read a basic text, to around 70% in low and middle income countries, according to a preliminary analysis from an upcoming World Bank report. The rise is a result of the prolonged school closure and poor learning outcomes despite government's efforts to deliver remote learning. In many of these countries, schools have been closed for as many as 200 to 250 days, and many have not yet reopened. These latest data show an increase of 17 percentage points in learning poverty, even grimmer than the estimate of 10% deterioration issue earlier this year. Prior to the pandemic, learning poverty was already at 53% and initially estimated to rise to 63%, but the new data show an actual rise to 70%.
Third African Girls Summit aimed at the fight against child marriage. Niger hosted the third African Girls Summit as there is an upsurge of the violation of the rights of the girl child, and it couldn't have come at a better time for the fight against child marriage. The girls, who came from the four corners of the continent, made a strong appeal to African leaders and the international community to guarantee their rights by educating them and banning early marriages. They called on parents who do not refrain from giving their daughters away at an early age to avoid promiscuity. Give us books, not husbands, they said in front of the audience at Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum, special envoys from the United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, and organizations working for the welfare of girls. Now, Niger is also the country with the highest population growth rate, with an average of 7.5 children per woman. This is the consequence of the dropping out of school young girls and early marriages. In some places, girls are married off at the age of 9 or 12. This summit is therefore an opportunity to send a clear message to put an end to these harmful practices.
4 dead as another building collapses in Lagos. The building construction started about 2 years ago but not completed. However, the further developments just started 3 months ago. Another 2-story building under construction at 4 Mill Estate, Makbono Bandagri in Lagos collapsed on Wednesday, killing 4 people. The incident happened barely 2 weeks after the Ikoyi building collapse, which killed about 46 persons. According to Ibrahim Farinloye, the acting coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency Southwest, the incident happened about 1 p.m. He confirmed that 4 workers died in the incident while 5 persons were rescued with various degrees of injuries. The building construction started about 2 years ago but was not completed. However, further development just started 3 months ago, he said. Giving update on the incident, Adukele Ajisebetu, the Lagos police spokesperson, said the police and other rescue workers carried out operation at the site of the collapse.
Kenyan president sacks top prison's boss over escape of terror convicts. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta sacked top prison commander following the escape of 3 terror convicts who were serving jail terms for terrorism-related crimes. Kenyatta, in a statement, replaced Wycliffe Ogalo as the Commissioner General of the Kenya Prison Service with John Kibaso Warioba, a retired Army brigadier. It is also notified that the president had earlier today revoked with immediate effect the appointment of Wycliffe Ogalo as the Commissioner General of Kenya Prison Service, paving way for the new appointment, the presidency said. The new appointment follows the briefing Kenyatta received from the senior Ministry of Interior officials responsible for correctional services regarding the security breaches at the heavily guarded Committee Maximum Security Prison that led to the escape of 3 inmates. The Kenyan leader also directed the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and all security formations to take all actions necessary and pursue the committee escapees with all the available resources.
Colombia nun freed after 4-year captivity in Mali returns home. A Colombian nun who was kidnapped and held by armed group in Mali for more than 4 years have returned home. Sister Gloria Cecilia Narvaez, 59, was greeted by a dozen fellow nuns singing "Welcome, welcome, our heart welcomes you" as she arrived at Bogota Airport on Tuesday. She had been taken hostage on the 7th of February 2017 in southern Mali near the border with Burkina Faso, where she had been working as a missionary. In a letter last year, she said she had been taken hostage by the Al-Qaeda-linked group to support Islams and Muslims. She was freed on the 9th of October following a joint effort by governments of Mali and Colombia. While details of how her release was secured remain unclear, the Colombian police had previously said the group that abducted her had demanded a ransom. At the airport, Colonel Gustavo Carmago, deputy director of the anti-kidnapping police who had gone to Mali to press for her release, told the nun, "Your strength amazes me. Kidnappings have grown increasingly common in Mali in recent years, particularly in the country's vast northern and central regions where armed groups have proliferated since 2012 by feeding off economic insecurities, dwindling natural resources, and pre-existing sectarian tension."
In the last of our top stories, Burundi protection of northern lakes already bearing fruit. A few years ago, the northern region of Burundi was threatened by desertification. This also threatened the northern lakes, including Lake Rweru. Today, thanks to efforts to protect its buffer zone, fish production is on the rise, and this creates jobs and contributes to community development. The fisherman on Lake Rweru, Pascal Kurunzinza, explained how well production has increased since awareness creation began. With this increase in production, investors have created work on the lake. This provides a living for families. The administration says the increase is real and beneficial. Northern Burundi has a total of 6 lakes, including Lake Rweru. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories here on Africa Good Morning. We have so much more coming to you right after the break.
For the past 15 years, the Family of Hope Services has provided a helping hand to hundreds of children, whether it is to feed, educate, assist, and more. Phoebe Sylvanus, manager of the FHS and her colleagues, talk about their successes, challenges, and the joy of helping.
Since opening their doors in the early 2000s to provide food to children in need, the Family of Hope Services charity has worked tirelessly towards one goal: restoring hope, dignity, and love to some of the most vulnerable children in their community.
Basically, for us as an organization, we believe in restoring joy, hope, and dignity, and how we can also empower one another, because it's very challenging when you wake up each and every day going to work, and sometimes there is no salary. But what motivates us is the love that we have to give to one another, the love that we have to share as a team, being respectful to one another, also being kindness. What does kindness mean? It's being generous to others. Being generous is what you have, because sometimes it's not about just money, but it's about the smile that you reach out to the child, how you give the hug to the child, how do you make them to feel like they are special and they are unique in their own way, and there is no one like them. So that is what we believe, and that's what keeps us going. When we see children being in formal school and they come back and say, teacher, me, I'm now in grade 2, I'm promoted, or I'm at university, that just keeps us motivating us, and that keeps us moving.
Yesterday when I was busy talking to a group of teachers, we were busy training them. We spoke about how important is learning through play, and especially continually the teachers, they need to praise the children. And I told them that there are 101 ways of praising a child. And why am I with Family Hope? Maybe days where I could even say I'm working with them is because of the passion that they have for children. And seeing quite a number of children not being to school, just in the streets, it really shakes my heart.
Over the past decade and a half, FHS has evolved to cater to a myriad of challenges faced by children from some of the poorest informal settlements in Windhoek, including a remedial program that helps kids who fell through the formal education network get back to school. Their work has paid off. Several FHS graduates are now back at the centre, diplomas and university degrees in hand, to give back and help the next generation of kids.
And what we do, we accelerate their learning so that the following year they go back into the system, into the mainstream.
As with many organizations, FHS has faced an uphill battle in sponsorship, more so with the COVID-19 pandemic. Yet despite funding stretched to the limits, the centre serves more than 1,300 meals each week to 365 children as part of its community feeding program.
With hunger, it's really terrible, and it's terrible in a sense that you can see it in the face of the child. A hungry mind cannot study. These are children that are having issues of absenteeism. These are children that come to school without a lunch box. Children that are malnutrition, they are not growing. So those are the children that benefit from our feeding program. Initially, when we started beginning of the year, we said we want only to feed 265. Now with the issues of corona coming in also, we saw that a lot of parents have lost their jobs, there are no income, there is no food, neighbors are no longer sharing. So currently the challenge that we have for the feeding program is sometimes the food is not sufficient, because imagine cooking for 365 children, it's not a joke.
It becomes really a huge problem, because how is the child going to develop if the child does not eat?
So it became now difficult with COVID-19 for us to actually get funding. And also when you get funding, this funding sometimes probably it's just on food. But when it's only on food, then we also have like human resources also. Especially we now with this remedial program, the kids, we are not asking them a lot of money for them to pay because of their circumstance. We are giving them a second chance, and we want at least for them to break that poverty the cycle. At least when they get educated, we know that that family life will be improved.
Over the years, FHS has evolved to cater to the many needs of vulnerable and orphan children. Apart from the Back to School Assistance Program and the feeding scheme, FHS provides one-on-one counseling for struggling kids, parent workshops, career and upliftment programs, tutoring services, and, when possible, a treat or two.
Time to time when we have sponsorship, we also take them for a retreat also. Because one of the things that we realize that most of the children, they don't go out. They are always here in the informal settlement. There is no exposure for them. Even you ask them where is town, they will tell you it's Okuryongaba, or they will tell you Pick and Pay, because that's where they go. Because even when we have this career day, when you ask them, what do you want to become when you grow up? Security guard. What do you want to become when you grow up? Taxi driver. This is a reality. This is what they see on the daily basis. Then when you take them out also there and you they explore different career, maybe their mindset will also change, that I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse. Because I believe that people change because of the story for the next person. I mean, when I'm telling my story, I'm actually inspiring someone, or I'm actually also restoring someone's hope who was like about to give up. But also when they hear about my story, they will realize that I'm not alone, but there is also life after this that I have to go through.
Season 1 of the Hunters Chill session is coming to a close. To celebrate Hunters and the Namibian Sun, we'll be having an exclusive invite-only event at Access Lounge on the 23rd of November. You can be part of this. Stand a chance to win exclusive double tickets for you and a friend to attend the Hunters Chill finale. WhatsApp a picture of you and your friend chilling with your favorite Hunters to 084 000 9820. Hunters, refreshes like nothing on earth. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Win instant cash this spring with Top Score Instant. To enter, buy any new pack of Top Score Instant 1 kg or 500 grams from any store countrywide and stand a chance to win one of 2 grand prizes of $20,000 Namibian or one of 12 weekly prizes of $5,000 Namibian. SMS Instant to 24442. Competition ends 30 November 2021. T's and C's apply. Top Score Instant, a proud product of Namib Mills.
After 100 years, the Altava and List group of Namibian companies are on the brink of relinquishing control of Namibia Breweries Limited for the very first time. The world's second biggest brewer, Heineken NV, has offered billions of Namibian dollars for the beer enterprise worth about 7 billion Namibian dollars, which employs some 784 people. The news of this possible transaction, which still needs to be approved by relevant competition authorities and stakeholders, drove Nambrew's share value up immediately, jumping from 34.62 Namibian dollars to 42 Namibian dollars in just one day. We spoke to the executive chairman of Altava and List, Mr. Sven Timmer, to learn more.
My name is Ogito Greg and I'm here in front of Namibia Breweries Limited. The world's second biggest brewer has offered billions to become a majority shareholder in Namibia Breweries. After more than a century as an iconic company in which Namibians had the biggest say, the majority of the shares in Namibia Breweries Limited are destined for foreign hands. If regulatory authorities and stakeholders agree, Heineken NV will acquire 50.01% of Altava and List shares in NBL Investment Holdings in a multi-billion-dollar transaction. We spoke to the big boss of Altava and List, Mr. Sven Timmer, who told us more about this development.
Yeah, my name is Sven Timmer. I'm the executive chairman of the Altava and List Group, which is a company that has got various investments. And one of them is Namibia Breweries, Namibia Breweries Limited, which we own and have been owning basically over 100 years.
And Heineken has expressed interest in buying Namibia Breweries Limited. The first question is, will Namibia Breweries continue to produce truly Namibian beer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why Namibia Breweries was bought. Heineken's very convinced about Namibia Breweries and its brands, and I think we've done a sterling job over the last 100 years. Namibia about over 84% market share and significant volumes in South Africa and other countries, and that's based on a truly brewed Reinheitsgebot beer, meaning it's only done of barley, water, and hops. Yeah, that's why it will be remaining to be brewed in its heritage.
And previously, ONL has said that it doesn't have the muscle to ensure Nambrew's rightful place on the global stage. How difficult is it for a company from a developing country to compete internationally?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think for a company in Namibia, a local company, to really spread its wings across the world, you would not be able to do it just by yourself. It is today so cost competitive that you would have to really own a brewery or build a brewery in each country to be competitive. The transportation of beer back and forth is not making any money or sense from a making point of view. So, and then to have the money and the muscle to build many breweries to operate across the world is very, very difficult. You would probably could do trademark license agreements and so forth, but yet, brand owners would like to look after their own brands. And if you don't own the brand, you will not necessarily look after it. So it makes a lot of sense for Namibia or Namibia breweries to be under wider wings, such as Heineken.
Should Heineken become the majority shareholder of Namibia Breweries Limited, more profits will flow out of the country. Doesn't this undermine Namibianization?
I mean, yes, there's different views about this. It is for sure that Heineken's increased their effective market share from shareholding from 30 to 60%. But a strong performing company will make more money than a company that doesn't have a future. So the Namibianization point of view could be, if you look at it from the percentage from a shareholding point of view, be compensated through the increased profit over time, but also it will be brewed by Namibians and it will stay here. So the benefit of all the other job generation benefits remain in Namibia. So there is no change to it. So I don't think it is just we take Namibia to the world more so than ever before.
Thank you very much. And how will ONL utilize the money it makes out of this deal?
You see, somebody said this morning, asked me, it's time. We have done our bit for Namibia Breweries. We need to get it out of the stable now. And we want to create further NBLs, further great companies. And yes, we've got a couple of options, of course. One of them is we have got Hartlief, and can you imagine with a similar Reinheitsgebot or Fleischermeister, you will be in everybody's weekend braai all over South Africa and processed meat. That's what we're going to pursue. So there's many businesses that we have who will invest a lot more into Hartlief, a lot more into dairies, into leisure a lot, and we will look at new businesses around.
And could you share a final message to those who love to drink Namibia Breweries products?
Yeah, the only thing I say, keep on enjoying our beer. It will not change. It will truly stay with us and keep creating memories. Last thing, however, consume responsibly.
Thank you very much.
Looking at how those share prices shot up, I'm definitely excited to see how this deal transpires. But something else I'd like to see is the weather feeling and looking good. The forecast will let us know how it is.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. How big of a problem is public health lead poisoning? What are the sources of lead poisoning and who is at risk? What can you do to protect yourself? WHO's Leslie Onyon explains in Science in 5 this week.
We're talking about preventing lead poisoning today. Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith and these are WHO's Conversations in Science. We are talking to Leslie Onyon today. Welcome, Leslie. Leslie, explain to us exactly how big a public health problem is lead poisoning and who are the people at risk?
Thank you for the invitation, Vismita. Lead has a long and dark history, and the knowledge of the effects of lead go back as far as Roman and Greek times, so almost 5,000 years. Today, WHO estimates that almost 1 million people die from the effects of lead exposure. We're all potentially at risk from exposure to lead, but there are 3 groups we're particularly concerned about, and these are children under 5 years of age, pregnant and lactating mothers, and adults who are occupationally exposed. The effects of lead can often go unrecognized because they can be insidious and fairly mild, such as anemia, constipation, abdominal cramps. However, it's the neurological effects that we're most concerned about, and these particularly affecting children. So the neurological effects themselves can range in severity from irritable behavior, clumsiness, right through to more serious life-threatening neurological diseases and effects such as encephalopathy and coma, convulsions and death. Adults are also affected, particularly cardiovascular diseases and renal diseases. These are affecting occupational groups in particular. Exposure to lead is often not serious in an acute incident, but the repeated exposure at low levels can give rise to these severe neurological impacts that last a lifetime.
Leslie, describe to us the sources of lead poisoning around us.
There are a large number of sources of potential lead exposure. We already have taken action on a number of these, for example, the outlawing of leaded petrol, the controls on use of leaded water pipes for drinking water and so on, but there are still many other sources. Leaded paints, the use of lead in decorative and household paints is a concern, but there are a variety of other sources too. We still can find lead in drinking water and food, It's found in some traditional medicines and cosmetics, and in other household sources, glazed pottery and so on. The mouthing of objects containing lead is a particular danger for children. Small objects such as fishing weights and curtain weights can easily be swallowed and then have a lasting effect once remaining in the body. But there's also the mouthing of amulets and toy jewelry and so on. A particular growing source of lead exposure comes from the recycling of lead acid batteries. And these are a growing need in our society, for whether it be for electric vehicles, whether it be for small-scale uninterrupted power supply. But the recycling of these batteries is often done under very poor conditions, often within homes as a sort of cottage industry in developing countries, and therefore whole communities and families can be affected.
Leslie, WHO and partners are observing a Lead Poisoning Prevention Week to raise awareness and call for action to prevent lead poisoning. Why is this important even in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, in the pandemic, we often find people spending more time at home than they had done before. And obviously, if their home is contaminated through the presence of lead-containing paint that can be causing dust inside the house, but also people might want to get engaged in hobbies which involve exposure to lead, such as soldering of electronics or making ceramics with glazes or oil painting, because oil paint still can contain lead. So there is often an increased hazard if spending more time in these contaminated environments.
What can people do to prevent lead poisoning?
There are a number of things that people can do to prevent lead poisoning. I think in terms of the issue of lead paint, you could check to see whether your house contains lead paint before embarking in any major renovation projects. Avoiding cheap, brightly coloured toys, jewellery, and other things that children can put in their mouths, potentially swallow. Also important would be to store food and drink in preferably glass containers. Certainly to not store food in tins that can have solder inside them containing lead. I know that's a common practice to reuse plastic containers these days, but sometimes these plastic containers can come from lead acid batteries and other sources, so be very careful there. Finally, talk to your healthcare provider if you have any concerns.
Thank you, Leslie. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to get into your economic news stories. In our first story, digital transformation, the way for job creation in Africa. The importance of digital transformation in creating quality jobs and the economic recovery of post-pandemic African countries. This is the main focus of the report Development Dynamics in Africa 2021, the result of a partnership between the African Union and the OECD Development Center, whose Portuguese edition was presented in Lisbon. The Portuguese version of the report tells us that the digital sector is booming in Africa and that dynamic means an opportunity for governments to help start a new growth cycle after the COVID-19 crisis. Armindo de Brito Fernandes, Director General of the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, stated, in addition to taking stock of the impact of the crisis on the African continent, the report offers recommendations to African governments and companies on public policies and the sharing of best practices to boost recovery and job creation.
Benin project turns waste fabric into recycled gold. In Benin's small coastal town Oidwa, an initiative employs people with disabilities to transform fabric scraps into beautiful artifacts sold in big hotels in the small West African country and abroad. Every morning, Ameke Yosofu goes around the sewing workshop in Oida, a small coastal town in southern Benin, and collects in a large cardboard box scraps of fabric that had been used by tailors to make clothes. If I had to give a key word to describe this work, the first would be wow. Every time someone comes in, it's wow. Secondly, there is a fact that this work is done by people with disabilities. The question I am asked is, how did you come up with such an idea of making them work? It's normal for me with the condition that the person could not be moving all the time. That's obvious, said Nadia Adele. Braiding fabric scraps into objects have made a significant difference in the lives of workers with disabilities, most of whom use crutches or wheelchairs.
Now in South Africa, economists expect repo rates to stay the same ahead of festive season spending. Economists expect the repo rate to remain the same ahead of the Monetary Policy Committee statement on Thursday, after initially thinking that it could be increased at the last meeting of the year to prevent excessive spending over the festive season. However, the economy is in no shape to absorb another increase, says economist Mike Schussler. Professor Yanni Rousseau from the Wits Business School agrees that the repo rate will remain the same. I think that it will stay the same because the committee first wants to see what the effects of the higher inflation rate will be. Inflation expectations are still developing, and it is too early to say what will happen to the inflation rate.
Why should Africa pay for developed nations' emission? Chrissy asks. It will cost an estimated 4 trillion rand over the next 15 years for the African continent to pull off just energy transition. The Ministry of Fisheries and Environment, Barbara Creasy, said in a debriefing session following international climate change talks that although South Africa had committed to doing its fair share in mitigating greenhouse emission, this needed to be done in a manner at a pace that suited the country's interest with unique challenges. We can't be signing up to a situation where we are not ensuring we have adequate financial support for the transitions. During the COP26, South Africa received as much needed boost in the form of an 8.5 billion pledge from France, Germany, the UK and the US and the European Union. Chrissy said although this was a good first step towards enlisting renewables to the national grid and ditching coal, if taken in context of the work required to make this work for a developing nation, this was a small first step.
Hey, why should a little guy pay for the big guy? That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, economic indicators. Now, I consider myself quite the spiritual person, but I'm of the opinion that I'll need to practice more faith than usual this weekend as Arsenal takes on Liverpool. But to give us the updates on this and all the sports news happening around the world, please welcome Ari Hochad. Ari, how's it going?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, indeed, it's a big game. Arsenal against Liverpool. It's the Monday might be. Well, Monday will be red. I don't know which red it will be. So let's see what happens over the weekend. But to go into what's happened at before this weekend's games, at the moment Chelsea is leading. Chelsea 11 games and 26 points. They're leading by 3 points at the moment. Leading Manchester City. It's got 23 points, and then West Ham really doing well, also 23 points. What's happening on Saturday, tomorrow, is Chelsea. They have a tough away game against Leicester City. That's always a difficult game at Leicester City. And then it's Manchester City that will host Everton. That game is only on Sunday. So those are the top teams and what they need to do on the weekend to stay on top. And tomorrow, as you mentioned, it's a big game. Liverpool that's hosting Arsenal. That game is being played at Liverpool's home game. And then on Saturday, also it is Watford that would host Manchester United. So those are the top teams playing. So we'll see on Monday, what red it will be for us, for the two of us, Ashwin. And then staying with soccer a bit, it is an ongoing saga with Ghana that beat South Africa in the World Cup qualifying. And there was an official complaint to FIFA regarding that. And FIFA is investigating that. The allegations made from South Africa is very direct. It's about match fixing. They accuse the referee of match fixing in that game. So FIFA asked Ghana to give a report why it wasn't the case. And then Ghana also replied yesterday with a strongly worded report to FIFA and to South Africa, say that they find it very shocking and disappointing and disrespectful that South Africa went all this way. But let's see, it was a bit of a 50-50. It was a very questionable penalty. So let's see what FIFA say after all the investigations. It almost sounds like the Rossi Erasmus rugby saga. So that takes me to the rugby. There is rugby tomorrow again. It is the Springboks that will play against England. And that is Rossi Erasmus there in the middle. And just news from World Rugby is that he was found guilty of misconduct. He was banned of all rugby for 2 months, and he can't be at any rugby games until September next year. He will miss 10 games of the Springboks, and that is because he challenged the referees in the British Lions tour by a 60-minute video. So he did appeal that, but experts say that the appeal is unlikely to succeed. But we will have a look at how that develops as well. But back to the rugby tomorrow, that is Andre Pollard. Andre Pollard, he's back at the fly-out for the Springboks tomorrow. They play at the 5 p.m. kickoff time, a big game against England. That's a repeat of the World Cup final a few years ago. So lots of spice in that game. And other games happening tomorrow, just quickly, Italy play against Georgia. Scotland play against Japan. England play South Africa, like I said, 5 p.m. Wales play Australia. That is at 7:30. And France play New Zealand. Also a big game tomorrow evening. On to some tennis news. It was the finals of the men's and the women's series. The top 8 in both sections went through. The top 8 ladies, they started a little bit earlier. They played in Mexico. And the winner a few days ago was Gabina Muguruza from Spain. So she won that tournament, the top 8 that was played in Spain. She beat Annette Kunterville of Estonia. That is the Gabrine Muguruza, a great win for her in the top 8 tournament. And on the men's side, on the ATP men's side, the finals are being played in Italy. They're still busy with the round robin. They got closer to the semi-finals. Actually, it was Germany's Alexander Zverev playing there. He went through last night. He beat Hubert Hurkacz of Poland, and now he plays Novak Djokovic in this one semi-final. So he's already through. And waiting on the other side is Daniil Medvedev of Russia, and he will play the winner of Andrei Rublev and Kasper Ruud. So that game will be played today. On to some golf news to finish off. There's the season-ending big tournament in Europe. It's the World Tour Championships that's been played at the Jumeirah course in Dubai. It seems like lots of sports happening up in Dubai at the moment. And it was Rory McIlroy that had a great first round yesterday. He came in with a 65. But the good news for South Africa is that Christian Besaidnout is just 2 shots back on 67. So a great start for Christian Besaidnout. Some good players just lurking on 68. Colin Morikawa of the USA and Sergio Garcia. And then Dean Burmeister from South Africa is actually born in Zimbabwe. He is on 69. So he is also in the run there. And just quickly, the RSM tournament in USA, Sebastian Munoz minus 10, and Louis Oosthuizen battled. He was minus 5. Brendan Grace on Louis Oosthuizen minus 1. Brendan Grace on minus 5. So that's all the sports news. I hope you have a brilliant sporting weekend. And Ashwin, all the best for Monday or for tomorrow. And we'll talk on Monday. See who wins, Liverpool or Arsenal. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Hey, fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the sports news updates. After this short break, your headlines. Throughout the week, every week, Africa Good Morning streams live from 7 a.m., bringing you the news and current affairs from the SADC region and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed today's top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are some of the headlines. 15 shot dead in crackdown on Sudan anti-coup protests. Death toll soars to 53 after attack on Burkina Faso security post. Security climate dominate as U.S. Secretary of State kicks off Africa tour. Nearly 8 million COVID-19 recoveries across the African continent. Digital transformation, the way for job creation in Africa. And in sport, tomorrow, Arsenal faces Liverpool. I wouldn't place too many bets on that if I were you. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning. Please check out our website. It's called One Up To, and there you can find all our shows. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. Please remember to play your part. Let us all fight COVID-19 together. Wear your mask, get vaccinated, and avoid unnecessary public gatherings. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light, and we will see you again next Monday.
Swera Jakanaka.